I'd say go for it.
We'll cycle through these so all of our people that are unable to join us can kind of see this information for themselves. And if you know anybody who is unable to join us tonight, like usual, we're going to have the webinar slides available on the coach's resource page, as well as the recording of this so they can hear and see all the questions everyone asked in case they have a question themselves that was answered. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So, welcome everyone to the 2026 basketball preseason webinar. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Jordan Crumbach. I'm the newest sport director with Special Olympics Maryland. I've taken over from Melissa Anger, who has now moved to our IUS department, and she's doing wonderfully. So, if anyone's wondering where Melissa is, that's where she is. And she's gone over everything with basketball with me. So I just really hope I do her justice because I know she's done amazing things with the program and she has nothing but wonderful things to say about you guys. So excited to be here, excited to do this basketball season. I know it's big and it's a beast, but I'm really excited to work with you guys. Keith Lample will be our head official again. He's going to be recruiting all of our officials and organizing that, which is absolutely wonderful. This might be his last year, guys, so be very thankful to him. Be very friendly and nice when you see him. He is hopefully training some more officials to take over for him. And then we have Steve Bennett, as you guys all know here, who's my boss. And then we have Mike Zarnowski, who is my boss's boss. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us tonight. And if you have any questions, these are the people that you can ask. So tonight we're going to go through a lot of stuff with basketball. There's a lot of different competition types offered, as you guys know. So just bear with me and thank you guys again for being here. I know it is a later webinar, and like I said before, a lot of you joined. I don't want to take up more time than I have to tonight. So just to go over what we're going to be talking about, the first thing we're going to cover is those coach certification reminders and resources just to make sure you guys all know what you need in order to be certified, along with your athletes and partners as well. We're going to talk about some coaching training opportunities we have for you guys this season, those really important deadlines that refer to competition registration, training registration, team rosters, things like that. We're going to be doing a brief slide on the college clinics, so trying to get those two annual clinics for you guys again this season. We have scheduled competitions, the state championships. We're going to go over that, and going to go over some unified sports reminders that Mike has put together for us. We're going to do some rule highlights and reminders for all competition types. So that's all 5v5, all 3v3. We're going to do a brief review of the coach's conduct. And then the last chunk is going to be slides that you can review on your own time, which is just a bunch of additional resources to help you guys out throughout the season.
Now, I will say, apologize that I didn't check with you earlier on this, Jordan. The slides that you see here, the references of what slide numbers they are, they may be off one or two, as we did make one or two tweaks to those.
I should
So,
have fixed them. I think I
oh,
fixed
okay,
them. Yeah, I was
great,
on like 20 minutes ago. So unless you've made changes since then, they should align with the content.
perfect.
Mhm. So just a reminder before we get into this coach certification or just general certification section, no athlete or volunteer. This means unified teammate. This means sport volunteer, assistant coach, head coach can participate at any in any manner with Special Olympics without the proper and valid certifications. There are absolutely no exceptions to this policy. And if you guys have any questions about it, you can direct them towards Mike. But yes, as you guys know, just make sure you have all those certifications in, which we're going to go over. So the biggest key is to work with your area leadership. So you guys should know who your area leaders are and who your coordinators are. If you don't, definitely reach out and ask. We have that information as well as your other fellow coaches should have that information. But it's really important to work with them to make sure you have all the proper paperwork in. There's a lot of different volunteer levels. The athletes, there's a new registration form for athletes. So as all of these things are evolving and we're trying to simplify the process for you guys, that information all trickles down through your area leadership. So work with them well ahead, well in advance of the season starting to make sure you have your all your I's dotted, your T's crossed. And yeah, just really lean on them. They are your resource and they are the keeper of a lot of knowledge. So, where can you find your certification status of your participants as well as yourself? So, if you go to the main coach resource page, not the basketball specific one, but the main one that lists all the sports, at the top, there's going to be a certification status update. There, it's a searchable PDF that will have all of your athletes as well as the non-athletes. So, that includes your unified teammates, your, like I said, your sports volunteers, your assistant coaches, and your coaches. You can kind of see if they've done the trainings, when they expire, so you can kind of be on top of when you have to renew that. And it's also a downloadable file. And then there's also another one that's specifically for coaches. So there's a coach education and development page that you can go on. When I want to know if a coach is certified or not, I use this one. I think it's a little more straightforward personally and a little more detailed to kind of show you all the trainings you've ever done. It's like you're basically your training transcript. As you can see, some coaches have dozens of trainings, very dedicated head coaches and advanced coaches. But yeah, make sure you can follow these links in the webinar, and you can also just go to the webpage if you're yourself, if you're comfortable with that, or if you kind of know how to navigate our website. And then these are updated by Dottie Rush on usually either a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Mike, I know you might have the answer to this. The current one is from November 14th. So if you've done a training since then, it's not updated on that one. So just make sure, once you do it, you go back into the updated version to make sure everything's there. If you've done a training and you don't see it there, definitely reach out to your area leader who will then reach out to Dottie just to make sure that's all squared away for you.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, they're typically updated on a weekly basis. However, with the holidays and a few other things, it's a bit of a off cycle. They will be updated by this Friday.
Oh, great.
Also, we are aware of a backlog, that we have a plan in place that we're executing, that should get that backlog pretty much cleared by within the next 3 weeks. So if you believe something's been submitted but you're not sure, give us another couple days, and we'll be going through and getting the all of those taken care of. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. Okay, so what is required for each participant? A lot of you guys may have seen this chart before. It's in every one of our webinars that we do, but we love to refresh you guys. So for athletes, they just need that athlete registration form. There is a new form that I think was instated March of this year. It's only 4 pages. It's a lot shorter than the typical form, and we're going to go over it here, but it's a little more straightforward. It's easier to fill out, so those should be fairly simple. For unified teammates and just general volunteers, they must have the valid volunteer application. I do believe it's the Class A volunteer application. And with handing that in and completing that, they also agree to do that background screening that's needed. And then they also must do that protective behavior certification training online. Sport volunteers have to have all of that, plus the concussion certification, which is also another online course that we offer. Assistant coaches, in addition to those things a sport volunteer needs, they also need to do a CSOA course. This is the Coaching Special Olympics Athletes course. The only exception to this is if you are solely a unified sport coach. If you're a unified sport coach, you need the Coaching Unified Sports Training. But I personally recommend doing the CSOA. It's a webinar that Mike, myself, and a couple of other colleagues at Special Olympics Maryland host for you guys. We do one a month. We're going to start back up with those in January, and Mike will be relaying those dates and that information to you guys. So just keep an eye out for that. But CSOA is really important because once you take that course, you're certified to be an assistant coach for any Special Olympics sport. So whether it's traditional or unified. So it's a really nice universal certification that I think really benefits all of you. And then head coaches, they have to have everything an assistant coach needs. And then additionally, they have to have a sport specific coach training. So for you guys, that would be the basketball ones. Right now, we have 5 opportunities that we're offering for basketball sport specific training. They're all in different areas. surrounding basketball, and then we're going to talk about those a little later, but they are also on the basketball coaches resource page for you guys with the sign up link. So make sure if you are interested, you do register and sign up. It helps give us an idea of how many people we have attending, what we have to account for, and some of them are going to require you to submit responses before the webinars or before the trainings to help us, kind of guide and go through the agenda. So, the athlete registration form, like I said, it back in March, we did change it. It has been shrunk. I think the old one used to be 6 or 8 pages, and this one is only 4. Um, it does not require a signature of a medical professional, which I know is one of the really big differences between this current one and the older one. These newer forms are valid for 1 year from the date of this signature. And then the first 2 pages is just general information, which you'll see in the next slide. And then the final 2 pages is a brief medical history overview. That medical history is very important, especially for us as staff in case there is a medical emergency. We have that information and can pass it on to our medics on site. So make sure your athletes fill that out completely. And also make sure you as a coach are aware of their medical needs. Of course, in case of an emergency, you will be one of the resources they need to help them get through that. Area leaders have been involved with the process of implementing this new athlete registration change. So it's not something that we at the office are forcing everyone to do. It's something that we've changed based on a lot of conversations we've had with many volunteers just to make it easier for everyone. And they're going to be submitted to SOMD HQ in the same manner as the previous forms were. And then for these athlete medicals that are still valid, so the older forms are still valid, but they're only valid through 12/31/2025. So for any of your athletes, obviously participating in the 2026 basketball season, will need to complete this new athlete registration form if they have not already done so. And then this is just an example of what the first 2 pages look like. Very similar to the other one, very straightforward. And if you guys are interested in seeing the full registration form, you can always find it on our website. And then for the volunteer application, along with the athlete registration, there has also been a change to the volunteer application that will make it a little straightforward and simple for volunteers. This also includes your unified partners. It only requires a single signature now, which is wonderful. And let's see. Then just a reminder that these screenings, so the application and then the background screening that goes along with that, is valid for 3 years. And if you're interested in seeing when that expires or if it will be valid through the entire basketball season, go to the website and look at that PDF I mentioned. And then just a reminder, I know I mentioned it before, but volunteers in any capacity must complete the protective behaviors training on top of their registration form. That's really important. It's about a 15-minute training online, and once they complete it, they will receive a certificate, and that can be sent to the area leader so they have that on file for us.
I think one thing you might have mentioned this, Jordan, but if not, as Jordan said, the volunteer application continues to be valid for 3 years, whereas the new athlete registration form will need to be renewed every year.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind as coaches. So it is a little bit of change there, but it does, as Jordan very well stated, it does eliminate some of the restrictions and challenges we've had with medical professional signatures. It does eliminate that. But I just want to stress that the athlete registration form and the medical information provided in the new form does need to be renewed every year.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, and then coach credentialing at competition. So only people who have met all the requirements to be a coach, so in that chart that I showed you guys a couple slides ago, will be credentialed as a coach at any Special Olympics competition. So yes, Christian, I see your question. Volunteer does equal partner. So any unified partners, or we're now using the term unified teammates, they will need to have all that the volunteer requirements in. But yeah, so the credentialing at competition. So when you go to the state competition and you get your little credentials, We at the state office, we print those out in-house and we make those based on what your status is in GMS. So if you are an assistant coach but you want to be a head coach, you have to have that sports specific training in order to be credentialed as a head coach. So just to let you guys know, I know we've had some coaches or some volunteers in the past that are like, "Hey, I'm this and I'm this." It's like, well, if you don't have the certifications, we technically can't name you that. Um, and just another reminder about CSOA, it is the only exception to this is the coaching unified sport. So if you are coaching a unified sport and only unified sport, you can take the online coaching unified sports course. But I do recommend doing the coaching Special Olympics athletes webinar with Mike and my colleagues, just because it kind of covers all your bases in case you want to jump in and help out another team for another season in another sport. And let's see. Again, the current sport certification status and transcripts are always available online and updated on a weekly basis, with the exception of the holiday and a couple backlogs. But we're going to be helping Dottie kind of get away with that backlog or get rid of that backlog and update everyone to where they are right now. So in the coming weeks, just keep an eye on that. Let's see. And then going back to those coaches trainings I mentioned, so we have 5 opportunities right now for basketball trainings for this season for coaches. The first one is actually going to be this weekend, December 7th from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be in Montgomery County at Berry School. The clinician will be Melissa Anger, who you guys are familiar with, and she's going to be going over just fundamentals for all skill levels. So just doing some refreshers. She's going to be doing some drills for you guys, some plays. So definitely, if you're interested, come to that. Melissa is kind of like a beast when it comes to basketball. She knows everything. So if you have any questions or just anything you want to know about basketball, make sure you go to this training. December 13th, the following weekend, we have a PDU fundamentals and refresh training. I'm going to be leading it with fellow Howard County PDU coaches Chris Anderson and Kara Gregg. We're going to be hosting it in Howard County, most likely. Location to be determined at this point. We are waiting to lock some down. And then the next one we're going to do is basketball rules and technicalities. Our head official, Keith Lample, will be conducting that. This one's going to be over Zoom. So if you're unable to be in person or you're having trouble, you're further away or, in those Upper Shore, Lower Shore, St. Mary's counties, you definitely have the Zoom option, which is wonderful. So we have the basketball rules and technicalities. This one, along with the other Zoom, the Masters Coach discussion that I have next as training number 4. These ones you have to do a little bit of work before. So in the Survey Monkey, I really want you guys to list at least 3 topics or 3 areas you want to bring to the table and discuss. What areas everyone mentions in the survey is going to kind of lead and guide the agenda and the discussion to make it worthwhile. Coaches trainings typically have to be 2 to 3 hours long, and in order to meet that requirement, I really need you guys that are participating in that to engage with me beforehand. And then training number 5, we're going to do a basketball training and drills. So it's going to be about training, practicing, and some drills you can do with your athletes. That's going to be at the Washington College Clinic, which is going to be held on January 18th. And it's going to be led by their head coach, Alicia Mosley, which if you guys have participated in basketball with us before, you know her, you love her. She's wonderful. She's very experienced and has a lot to offer. So really excited for this one. Next slide. So some really important deadlines for you guys. We have January 15th. That is going to be the training registration deadline. That's when all of your athletes and also your volunteers and coaches need to be enrolled in basketball training in GMS. Once you're enrolled in the basketball training, it will then make my life a lot easier to put the teams together in GMS once I get those team assessments and rosters from you guys. This is due to your area leadership 1 to 2 weeks before the January 15th deadline. I know that is the holidays, so of course everyone's busy. You got a lot going on. It would be really awesome if you guys could get it done before the holidays, but I know some practices have not started yet. But yeah, just make sure you keep in mind of this deadline. And then we have January 26th. That's going to be the date for late forms, as you guys are familiar with. These are due to your area leadership 1 to 2 weeks before. So if you don't get an athlete registration form in right away, or there's 1 or 2 people that are behind, this is the time for them to catch up. Team rosters and assessments, they're going to be due January 22nd this year. I think it's a little earlier than years past. But as a new sports director, it's just really going to help me, especially because there are a lot of teams. It's really going to help me get the time to put all of you guys into GMS and all those teams in there before the first qualifier. And then we have our competition registration deadline. So that's going to be February 5th, and that is for the state competition. So if you guys are planning on participating at the basketball states this year, you need to have everything in by February 5th to meet that competition registration deadline. And I see, Scott, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just replied to Scott. So Scott, if you could
Okay,
just enter
cool.
that into the chat. We don't have for the interest of time, we're trying to do all the questions in chat and not have people on mute. So appreciate that, Scott.
Yeah, for folks who don't realize, there's 72 coaches on the line tonight. We really can't open it up for verbal questions until maybe at the very end. So type it in.
Mhm.
Steve and I are watching the chat. Thank you.
And if we don't get to your question, definitely email it to me after the webinar and I can answer it via email for sure. So next we're going to cover rosters, assessments, and GMS entries. So for teams, the area programs will enter only the training registration into GMS. So all your area leaders are responsible for just training. I will be entering all of your teams into GMS. And like I said, the deadline for that is going to be January 22nd. It is a couple days earlier than past years, but I just really want this extra time because there are so many teams and it is my first time doing basketball. So I really appreciate you guys working with me in that. And then even if you can, get them in even earlier because rather than getting 100 team assessments on the same day, I would love to be able to do them piece by piece. Um, so just a reminder that your team assessments will count as the final roster. So once you submit those assessments to me with every name of your player, that will be the final roster that you will continue through the entire season with. So you will not be able to add anyone to that roster. And for the individual skills competition, like usual, the area programs will enter both training registration and the competition event registration. So they're going to be handling everything, your area leaders for individual skills. But if you have any questions, please direct them to me. You have to send me your individual skills roster, which I'm going to show you guys along with the team assessments, just a quick review in the coming slides. You have to indicate whether your skills athletes are level 1 or level 2. And then you also have to submit the qualifying competition score sheets to me as well, just so I can be assured that they actually participated in a second qualifying competition to be eligible to compete at states, which we're going to talk about in the coming slides as well when we talk about how you guys can qualify for participating at states. So the team assessment form is the self-rating of your team's ability. It's used for divisioning and matching of abilities of teams at the beginning of the season. So because I'm very unfamiliar with you guys and your teams, I'm really going to be relying on your team assessments and your scores in order to do the matchups for the first couple qualifiers. Of course, as I watch you guys play and I get feedback from other coaches and other staff and volunteers that are there, I will adjust the matches as needed down the line in the season. But initially, these are really going to help me out to be as accurate as possible. I know everyone kind of scores and tests differently, but just try to keep it consistent. It really helps me out. And then let's see. Yeah, again, January 22nd. I feel like that deadline's on every single one of these slides. I just really want to hammer it into you guys. And then again, like I said, will be entering these into GMS as in previous years, so you guys don't have to worry about that for teams. And as you guys know, or some of you might not if you're new coaches, but this is what the team assessment looks like. It is on the coach's resource page, the basketball specific one. It's an Excel sheet. The first page or the second sheet, one of the two tabs is this, the team assessment. This is what you're going to turn into me. So it's going to list every player on your team along with their score in each area of skill and their total. And this is also where you're going to mention who's your head coach, who's your assistant coach, and who's your sport volunteer. Only the people on the rosters will be allowed on the courts during competition. This includes both qualifiers and the state competitions. So if someone wants to be on the sidelines, if someone wants to help coach, they need to be certified and they need to be on this roster or else they cannot be on the court. Like we said, they need to be certified. It's very important. They cannot participate if they're not certified, if they're not on this roster. And also, it helps us kind of keep track of how many people are on the court because we don't want to overwhelm the athletes. We don't want to overwhelm the competition spaces and have people running into each other. So this is that first page. The second tab on the Excel sheet is going to be a breakdown. So it's going to show you each area you're going to be scoring your athlete in. And it kind of breaks down, what makes good game awareness, what makes good shooting. So this is really helpful for you if you're trying to figure out where they land on that scale. So definitely use this as your guide.
And I'd take a minute here to also on this one here. Yes, Jordan. We've had situations in the past where coaches would rate their best player on their team the top score. Really look at the descriptors because a lot of times your best player, depending on your team, if you have a middle rated team or a lower level team, your best player may not be, it's not going to be a five. Your best player may be a three or a two. So really take your time to look at these descriptors before you start rating your team. Because again, that's very important. So just again, I just stress that your best player is not going to get all fives unless your team is like a high school varsity type of team. So again, really take a look at those descriptors and rate them accordingly. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Steve. And yeah, we understand that all athletes and all teams have different skill levels and abilities, but we really don't want to match up a team that's super high in skill level with a team that's super low in skill level because on paper they might look even and then you get out on the field and it's just a blowout and then the athletes it's just not a fair competition for everyone and people are left unhappy. So definitely want to make it fair, want to make it fun, want to make it a good experience for everyone involved. And then for those who are doing individual skills, this is what the individual skills roster looks like. So it's very straightforward, more so than the team assessments. But same thing, you need that head coach, the assistant coach, the sport volunteer information, as well as the name and information for all of the athletes on your skills roster. So these are going to be done per county. So whereas some counties might have multiple teams in their county, this one is just for everyone in your county that's participating in individual skills will be on one roster. And then something that is a little new but a little familiar to some of you maybe is the competition assessment form. So after every one of the qualifiers, I would really love to get your feedback on how the matches and how the games went. We have a lot of qualifiers. We have multiple ones in a day this season. We have ones I think almost every single weekend between February through the end of March. So I can't be there at every single game, and when I'm there, I can't see every single game. So I really rely on you guys to give me honest reviews of your matchups and let me know if it was good or if it was some crap and you guys don't think you should play again and it was unfair and no one had fun. I definitely want to know all that nitty-gritty stuff from you guys because this will really help me determine matches later on in the season as well as for states. So this can be found on the coach's resource page, and I have made it fillable, which is great. So you guys should just be able to type away and submit that to me after your qualifiers and competitions. And then going into the college clinics, so we have our annual Washington College Women's Basketball Clinic. It's going to be January 18th. The timing is TBD. I'm working with their coach to nail down a time frame within that Sunday. But we are limiting it to 40 athletes for space, just like last year. The registration link is now live, so you can click on it and find that here. It is also available on the basketball coaches resource page. The University of Maryland Terps Clinic is still in the works. I have reached out to them multiple times and I'm still waiting for them to get back to me. But I really want to do that again for you guys this year. I know it's an annual thing, so I will get the date to you as soon as I have it. And then for currently scheduled competition, so these are just the qualifiers. The next slide, I'm going to go over the dates for the required qualifiers, but these are the additional competition opportunities. You guys can look at them here. Not all of these are on the coach's resource page right now, only some of them are. I'm waiting to get those final details that are on the sanction forms from the counties to make sure you guys have all the information and are up to date with the coach's resource page. But right now, I think this is either 9 or 10, I think it's 10 scheduled competitions. The only one that's TBD right now is for Anchor Church in Easton. I'm working with Sharon from Upper Shore to set some dates for those. So hopefully in the next week or two, I'll have that locked down for you guys. And then what you guys really want to know is the required qualifier schedule. So on March 1st, which is a Sunday, we're going to do the required 5v5 traditional qualifier. That's going to be at the typical location, St. Mary's College. The facility is going to be the basketball court in St. Mary's College. And this is all 5v5 teams, 5v5 traditional teams, and you will automatically be registered for the qualifier, so you don't need to reach out to me and let me know you're attending the required. The only one that's TBD right now is for the Unified. I know we typically have it at McDaniel. I've reached out to them several times and we've been going back and forth on dates, and it doesn't look like they're going to have available space for us this season for the weekend we need for the required qualifier for 5v5 Unified. So I'm looking at alternate locations and I will let you guys know when I lock that down. So that's going to be a little change from years past. And then Howard County will be hosting the required 3v3 traditional and PDU, as well as the 5v5 PDU and skills qualifier. So dates for the state tournament. So all of this is on the website, but the dates are going to be March 28th and 29th. The 28th, we're going to do the 5v5 traditional and unified teams like normal. And then Sunday, March 29th, we're going to do individual skills, 3v3 traditional, and then both 3v3 and 5v5 PDU. So we're proud to be back at the University of Maryland. Really excited to work with them. Their staff has been great so far. And so Saturday, we're going to have School of Public Health, the Armory, and Xfinity Center, the main court, and the pavilion like last year. And then on Sunday, we have the School of Public Health, the Armory, Xfinity Center, the main court and pavilion again, along with Ritchie Coliseum. These are the ones we have on hold with the university right now. Depending on how many teams we have this season will depend on how many venues we end up landing. So we might not need all of these, but that'll all be relayed to you guys and also on the website. But we want to save the maximum amount for now, of course, for space. So this might be adjusted, but that'll all be relayed to you well in advance of the state tournament. So qualifying for the state tournament. So individual skills athletes must attend two qualifiers to be eligible for the state tournament. One of them is, of course, the required qualifier that's going to be at Glen Elg with Howard County. And you also have to have an additional either multi-county or in-house event. So, for example, last season with flag football, Zach Cintron was helping run things for Baltimore City, and he hosted a multi-county area skills qualifier. And basically, he just set up the skills stations for all the athletes and invited all the different counties' skill athletes to come and participate. And then that counted as one of the qualifiers. So if you guys are interested in doing that, definitely let me know. I can spread the word to the other skills coaches. I can put the opportunity on the website if you would like to open this up to other athletes. And if you want to make it easy, you can even do it on one of the nights you host your practices. That's what Zach did, and that was really easy. And then if you're not interested in coordinating all of that stuff or you don't have the time, an in-house qualifier is totally fine. Just make sure you set up all the stations, with regulation play and make sure that, everything's set up the way it should, like it would be at a state competition. Run through those, and then just again to emphasize, any kind of competition that the individual skills athletes do outside of the required qualifier, those score sheets need to come to me as proof that they did that competition. Let's see. And then for teams, so teams is going to be three qualifiers like usual. The required qualifier counts as one, and then the other two are going to be multi-team events. So any from the list of 10 that you guys saw on the other side, you can pick and choose from. I know we're a little uneven. I think we need one more 3v3 traditional or PDU, and then another 5v5 PDU. At least we don't need it, but I like to have the most opportunities possible. So I'm trying to balance the schedule and work with some other counties to see if we can do one or two extra just to really, balance it out for you guys and your teams. Um, so just remember that if you're interested in coming to a qualifier, let me know. You will be automatically signed up for the required qualifier. But if you're interested in any of the other dates, definitely let me know in advance. I will be making the schedule hopefully a week before. I would love to do that. But yeah, it really helps me make the schedule in advance. I know there's a lot of teams and space is also an issue in timing. So we just want to make sure that we don't have too many teams coming to the qualifiers and make sure everyone gets fair playing time and opportunity. Okay, and then division night and committee. So on Wednesday, March 18th, I'm going to be hosting a divisioning night for all levels of play. So this includes 3v3, trad, PDU, 5v5 PDU, 5v5 trad, unified. This is going to take place at the SOMD state office in the evening from 6 to 8 p.m. If you're interested in participating, use this link to apply. Not everyone who applies will, of course, be on the divisioning committee, but it's really great to know who's interested. I know Melissa had a good handful of you guys last year, so if you participated last year and would like to do so again this year, I welcome you guys and I encourage you guys to apply and be a part of it again. And then Steve's going to take over these slides. These are some we've added to discuss our unified sports. Just some reminders for you guys and any unified partners you have this season.
Thank you, Jordan. At this time, I would ask Mike. I know he's watching the chat, but as I'm presenting, I won't be able to watch the chat as you've been monitoring it. You've seen a lot of questions coming in. So, Mike, this is your heads up that I'm not monitoring the chat at this time.
Got it.
Um,
Thank you.
So again, the unified sports, we've had some challenges and some misconceptions and misunderstandings in the past. So we thought it was a good idea to bring this back up to the surface and talk a little bit about unified sports and what that means, what the participants are able or not able to do, and things of that nature, what the expectations are. Um, so again, unified sports is teams comprised of Special Olympics athletes with intellectual disabilities and their unified teammates who do not have an intellectual disability. Um, Again, it's a competitive model we'll talk about here. We also will address the PDU aspects as there are differences in the team concept with traditional and unified versus the PDU. There are some limitations within those two settings, if you will. But basically, we're looking at similar ability, similar age. And if you get nothing out of the next couple of slides other than PDU, know that the unified teammate and the athlete should be treated the same exact way regarding expectations, practice attendance, play on the court. There's no limitations whatsoever. There are in PDU, which we'll talk about in a minute. Again, we have the next slide here shows a chart that's based on the Special Olympics International rules and things of that nature. We've kind of broken it down to make it easier in this grid format, we think. So you see the team sports, that's what I'm going to concentrate here as we are talking with basketball. So similar age, that is a requirement. Similar ability, that is a requirement. We haven't had really any issues in the past with that situation as far as these two scenarios. Again, if you have questions about that, you can reach out to Jordan and we can talk through those situations. But I just want to hit on that with basketball for now. But you see the other sports, if you're a coach in one of the other sports, you can refer back to that grid and directly communicate with that sport director that oversees that sport. So, unified teammates, like I said earlier, they're the same as a Special Olympics athlete in regards to they are a full member of the team. They can score, they can defend, they can rebound, they can do anything that a basketball player regardless of unified or special Olympics athlete, can do on the court. No limitations whatsoever in 5v5 traditional, 5v5 unified. Okay. The unified teammates have made the commitment, just like the athletes, to meet all the standards that you as a coach set forth for that team. Attendance at practices, anything else that you do, training sessions, et cetera. They have to meet all the required qualifiers, as Jordan mentioned earlier, and the other qualifiers. No, no really exceptions there. I mean, again, your team is your team. Think of them as players, not necessarily unified teammates and Special Olympics athletes. Okay. Again, the players are the players, period. We look at the principle of meaningful involvement. That is where each member of the team, regardless of their status or their role, if you will, whether it's unified or SO athlete, they provide a meaningful involvement to the result of that team in that given game. Again, with basketball for unified, hopefully if you're a unified coach, you know this. If not, you're new and you will know these rules. The makeup on the field of play for 5v5 unified is 3 athletes and 2 unified teammates. You always have one more Special Olympics athlete when the playing field is comprised of an odd number of players on the court or field at a given time. We have had this situation come up in the past where if you're a county who has a lot of athletes, a lot of teams and everything, well, you heard Jordan say, once that roster is submitted, that's it. No change in moving forward in the season. We've had situations where people thought that, oh, well, I can just move these 2 unified teammates to over to this team now and do a lot of switches because it really doesn't matter. It does matter. That team should be training and practicing as a team from the time that roster is submitted, if not earlier, throughout the entire season. No flip-flops, no switcheroos, nothing like that should be going on throughout the season. Once that roster is established and turned in, that's it. And that's the way it remains throughout the entire season. There are some very limited situations with other sports that will be addressed with those sports. But again, it's that team roster is there, and everybody on that team should have the similar playing ability and impact as all other members on the team. You really shouldn't look for, unified teammates necessarily unless your athletes are also at a very high skill level, as far as, JV players or varsity players in high schools. But in certain situations, that may be appropriate if you have those Special Olympics athletes who have that same skill level and ability level. And again, we go back to the PDU model. I know that this will be touched on with the rules. That's the one difference where the mentors are not really unified teammates. They're more mentors on the PDU models, where they give instructions and they have limitations on the court, where they cannot rebound unless it comes right and hits them in the belly. They can't be in the paint, in the restricted paint zone, if you will. They're not to be playing defense. They're not to really take over the game or really have any interaction. They're really there to just facilitate the game and to give some direction to those athletes who are learning that skill set. Mike, do you want to add anything?
Just with that, everything you've said is spot on. But as a reminder, the PDU unified teammates or mentors still are making that commitment to that team. They are not interchangeable. The only difference, they're not a fungible asset for those who are familiar with that term. They're on that team, they are on that roster. They can't be changed. The only difference from the other unified teammates is what they can do while they're on the court. But so they need to be, they're making a commitment to that team, whether it's PDU or I guess traditional unified. I don't know if that was a way to describe it, but just wanted to be sure we were clear on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll give an example of what I say with on the field of play. Everybody should be having the right opportunities. I'll give an example. We have had situations in the past where coaches have said, "Hey, my unified teammates on a as Mike mentioned, traditional unified team. Um, my unified partners, I'm going to tell them they can't score. Oh, excuse my French, but what the hell's fun in that? If I have a breakaway layup as I'm a unified teammate, you're telling me I can't score? Well, that's not fun to me. I might not want to play on your team anymore. Um, and with that, we will take a look at. We said about the principle of meaningful involvement. There can be situations where an athlete or a unified teammate can dominate play. And that's where we say, yes, they can score, unified teammate or athletes. They can score, they can rebound, they can be the point guard, whatever you say, that's fine. But if somebody is completely taking over the game and scoring every point and not passing and being a ball hog and just showboating all over the place, we'll address that. And that's where that person is not giving meaningful involvement to the rest of the team, or they're abusing the principle of meaningful involvement with contributing to the team. They're contributing, but they're not letting anybody else contribute. So hopefully that clears that up, and give you some background information, and again bring that concept of what unified teammates and unified sports is about. It brings that up to the surface and as a refresher. So, if you have any questions, just reach out to us, and we'd be happy to answer any of your questions regarding that. Thank you, Jordan.
No, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you adding these really important notes. And all of the stuff that Steve just went over, as well as the PDU mentor do and don'ts, are on the basketball coaches resource page under the rules section. So all of the PDFs and links we have has information for all of those. So you don't have to memorize them or wonder what they are. They're all simply stated for you guys in those. So the next section we're going to go through is rules and points of emphasis. So just some rule reminders. It's not going to be all of the rules. This is not going to be an extensive overview. It's going to be short and sweet. If you have anything additionally you want to ask, drop it in the chat or email me after if we didn't cover it. Yeah. There we go. So just a general reminder, overview for a 3v3 traditional and PDU. The roster minimum is 6 players, the maximum is 8. For any 5v5, the minimum is 8 and the maximum is 12. Game time is going to be two 12-minute halves for 3v3 with a 2-minute halftime. And then for 5v5, there's going to be two 18-minute halves with a 5-minute halftime. The only exception to these times that I think I mentioned it later in the webinar is at qualifiers, because we have a lot of teams and our time is limited. These game times and these halves might adjust and shrink a little bit to accommodate all the teams to make sure everyone plays. But at the required qualifier, or required qualifiers, I'm going to try my best to keep the game lengths to regulation. And then, of course, at state competitions, they will be the full length. For clock management, there's going to be a running clock for both skill levels, for both 3v3 and v5v5, with the exception of the last minute of regulation in each half for 3v3. And then for 5v5, it's the last 2 minutes of regulation play in each half, along with the foul shots. Timeouts, there's going to be two 60-second timeouts per team per half. They do not carry over to the next half, or if there's an overtime period, they do not carry over then either. If I am mistaken in that, Steve, you can jump in. But I think I got that right. And then the start of the game for 3v3, it's just going to be a coin flip for possession, but then the 5v5 is where we're going to get into those jump balls to start off the games. So for 3v3 traditional, just reminders about foul shots, throw-ins, change of possession, and some additional notes for you guys. So no team fouls or individual fouls are going to be recorded, but they will be called. There's going to be no foul shots. We want the athletes to know when they make a mistake and we know when they make a foul. But like I said, we're not going to record them. The only time they may be penalized or a referee may feel the need to take it further is if the foul is committed over and over again after being spoken with. This might require a substitution. The player might be ejected, or the team might be forced to forfeit. This is all going to be at the discretion of the referees and the officials. And as you guys that have been with us in past seasons, our officials are amazing for basketball. They work really, really hard. They're always there when we need them. So I really would appreciate if everyone respects the call they make. All staff, including myself, will support any calls the officials and refs make unless they go directly against Special Olympic Maryland basketball rules, essentially. But like I said, our officials are really good, so they know all the rules and they shouldn't be making calls that go against, but everyone makes mistakes. And if they do that, just point it out to them. Or if you have a question, just raise your hand, bring it to their attention. Because they might not know, or they might forget, or they might mix it up with, they are referees for, regulation basketball and like regular basketball. They might mix up things and get confused. So just let them know in a nice and polite way. For throw-ins, the throw-in spot is used to start play in all situations. Defensive players must be on the baseline side of the foul line extended. Offensive players can be on either side of the foul line. The person throwing in the ball has 5 seconds to inbound the ball. But then also just a reminder, the person throwing in the ball cannot be the person that then shoots the ball. It has to be another player. Change of possession. The team acquiring the ball must take the ball behind the foul line extended or essentially clear the ball in order to then return the ball to make a shot. Either the ball or the foot of the player must touch or be behind that foul line in order for it to count. And if they don't want to dribble it back and pass that foul line extended, they can always pass it to another teammate. This does count as clearing the ball as long as the teammate is behind that foul line. And some additional notes, you may notice there are some slight differences in our 3v3 rules from the Special Olympics International or North America rules. This is an implemented change that Melissa and other staff members in the past have worked really hard on to make sure that it's consistent with the sport of basketball. Some of the rules, you look at them, the Special Olympics ones, and you kind of question, well, that doesn't make any sense, or that's not going to be as fun of a competition or a game for my athletes. So that's why these rules have been shifted around and changed, just to make it fun and make it, more like professional regular basketball. Rule reminders for 5v5 for traditional and unified. So we're going to talk about pressing and backcourt defense. The halves, they're going to be halves, not quarters. And we're going to talk about trash talking, foul shots, and then, of course, that ratio that Steve mentioned earlier. So no backcourt defense is permitted by a team that is leading by 15 points or more. We want to keep it fair. We want to keep it fun. That's not fair. Officials will not enforce any agreements between coaches. So when we talk about agreements, we mean, hey, my athlete's been feeling really down. They really need to get this shot to bring up the morale. If you let my athlete score, I'll let, your athlete score. That is not okay. That's not allowed. That's fixing a game. And this is just like any other professional sports game. You don't make agreements like that. Everyone plays, and that's how we keep it as fair as possible. If you have made those agreements and you know you're not supposed to, the officials will not enforce or honor those agreements made because they know it is against the regulation rules. And like mentioned, I know regular basketball, there's quarters. For Special Olympics, there are halves. Like I said, they're going to be 18-minute running clock except for the last 2 minutes. And at discretion of the competition director, which is going to be me, just means that for the qualifiers, like I mentioned before, we might adjust this and shrink the time a little bit to make sure everyone can get playing time in. But for the required qualifier, fingers crossed, and then definitely for states, we will have the full 18 minutes. No trash talking is going to be permitted during games. I know in 5v5 it's that higher skill level, so things can get a little more intense and a little more competitive. But no trash talking will be allowed or tolerated from athletes, unified partners. For some reason, if a mentor wants to pop off and get upset, I don't know, and then coaches as well. Coaches, you really lead the example for your team, whether it's your athlete or a unified partner. You are the shining example. You are their role model, and we expect you guys to act as such. And keep a level head, keep calm. I know things can be frustrated. I know you don't agree with every call the ref makes, but that's just sports, and that's just playing the game. So just make sure you keep calm, you stay nice, and you just really emulate the behavior that you want your athletes and players to portray. And then for foul shots, for 5v5, there will be foul shots in the 2026 season for all competitions. So the clock will stop on that first shot, like mentioned in that little chart slide I had a couple slides ago. Once the shooter gets the ball on second shot, the clock will begin to run again. And then going over that ratio real quick again, no more than 3 athletes can be on a court at one time. And then you must have a 3-to-2 ratio. So 3 athletes, 2 unified teammates. If for one reason an athlete gets injured, you also, I do believe, have to take out a unified teammate as well to keep that ratio fair and equal. You don't have to do that?
No, I think if you have that situation where you have to go down to 4 players,
Mhm.
you can't have 2 athletes and 2 unified partners, but you can never have more unified teammates than athletes. So again, if you have a roster, let's say nobody gets in this situation, you have a roster of only 5 for traditional unified teammates or teams. If an athlete goes down and you're down to 4 players only that can be playing, you could do 2 and 2.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's good to know. Okay. And then some rules and reminders for player development or PDU. When a team is winning by 20 or more points, the score on the scoreboard is going to go back to 0 to 0, but will continue on the score sheet. So whoever our scorekeepers are at the score tables will continue adding the points as usual, but that scoreboard will be wiped and returned to 0 to 0 if one team is leading by more than 20. When bringing the ball down the court, the mentors can accompany the athlete and provide instruction, but the athlete must be the person who is advancing the ball. We don't like to see our mentors dribbling the ball and doing fast breaks down the court. That's not what PDU is about. It's all about helping and teaching our athletes so they can move up in skill level to those traditional and unified levels. An appropriate offensive sequence would be multiple passes between athletes and other athletes or mentors. You can pass the ball to a mentor, that's totally fine. Um, but just to really, hammer in basketball and passing and plays to our athletes on the PDU teams, doing multiple passes between and then scoring is a really easy, really effective offensive sequence. And this is also explicitly stated in the rules. And if you're interested in some plays and things like that when it comes to PDU, definitely come to the coaches training with Chris and Kara. We're going to go over some drills and some plays for you guys that have worked and are successful to help you guys out. And then a really important thing with PDU is to recognize when a player needs to be subbed. So whether um, you are a unified or a mentor or you are an assistant coach, sport volunteer, definitely alert the coach if you notice some players, are getting tired or their mood or attitude is changing, they're getting frustrated. It's preventing them from playing to their full potential. And then ideally, an athlete should inbound the ball, but a mentor may do so when needed or appropriate. So, by this, I mean if they're trying to do a demonstration for the athlete. They want to teach the athlete this skill so they can do a demo, but then the next time it happens, if the athlete can, give them the opportunity to do that. Let's see here. And then we're going to do some continued reminders for PDU. So, like mentioned before, at this level of play, fast breaks are not allowed. We want to keep it fair. And, the competition is there to learn and kind of be a breakdown. So, any fast breaks aren't allowed. Mentors cannot shoot the ball. They cannot steal the ball. They cannot set screens, play defense, or rebound. So, I know that's a long list of things they can't do. But it's really important that they know this and they don't do this, so it gives our athletes the opportunity to learn and do it themselves so they can develop those skills and they can move up to different skill levels and succeed and reach their full potential. So, on top of this, keeping in theme with what mentors can't do, mentors must stay outside of the paint or lane, like Steve mentioned earlier. And they also must stay out from underneath the basket during play. They can move in to direct an athlete, but then they must return to outside the 3-point line to give the athlete the space to do the play and to show that skill. Mentors can give verbal on-court instruction. They can dribble, limited, like I mentioned, and they can also pass to other athletes. And this is really important for a 3v3 PDU. So we are now allowing athletes that might have assistive, it's a funky word, ambulatory devices, or just any mobility or medical devices. We're allowing them to play on the court. I think in years past this was limited. But if you do have an athlete that has some sort of mobility or assisted device, just let us know. I know that and let other teams and coaches know as well, just so they can prepare their athletes for the game and for the competition. I know for flag football, if you have, and for basketball too, if you have any athletes who are deaf, mark that on your team roster so I know to make sure we can get the proper sign language interpreters in place for them. And the same thing for here, if they have any assisted medical devices like this, let me know, just so I have it, on my radar. In case we need to let anyone else know.
I would say with that as well is if you have a situation or an individual who needs or uses an assistive device, such as Jordan was mentioning, let us know. We need to take a look at it, if you will, see if there's any other safety situations that arise. It's not just free game. It's basically give us a heads up for the okay and the approval at the state office. And again, I'll just reiterate what I was talking about earlier about unified. Again, I think this might have been where some of the misconceptions occurred earlier, but you see here in PDU, that's where those restrictions are in place. But in the regular, if you will, unified 5v5 and stuff, it's all hands on deck. Everybody's playing the sport of basketball or the game of basketball, and no holds barred, if you will, in that scenario. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, and then like I mentioned, we're going to go a little deeper into the PDU rule change. But ambulatory devices include canes, crutches. Like Steve said, let us know so we can officially approve it, just to make sure it's safe for everyone else on the court and, of course, for the athlete that has the device. We will be going through these on a case by case basis, and this is only exclusively for 3v3 PDU. Then if you can see, if you want to go over, these are the potential allowable devices for your athletes. And then just want to highlight this note down here. For safety reasons, wheelchairs are specifically not included among the potentially allowable devices.
I think I jumped the gun. What I said, you just
No,
covered.
you're good.
My bad for jumping in early on you.
It's all good. And just some additional rule reminders that don't necessarily fall into one of the categories on the other slides. But 3-point shots count at all levels, both 3v3 and 5v5. I think 3v3, they only gave it like 1 or 2 points in the past, and that's one of the rules that Melissa really fought for and implemented for changes, which is awesome. And just Steve mentioned it many times, the principle of meaningful involvement, fundamentally at its core, it just ensures that every player, whether you're an athlete or a unified partner, is given equal opportunity to contribute to the team. Everyone has different skill levels, everyone has different abilities. So as a coach, it's really your job to figure out what your players enjoy, what they're good at, and really let them use that skill to contribute to the success of their team. And just a reminder for everyone, you guys might know this already, but all players on your roster must play in each half of the game. So you can't just put an athlete in and they only play the first half of the game. All people on your roster must play in the first and the second half of your games. And then really important, uniforms, guys. This is one of those outliers that, can't fall into a category, but is really important and pretty much a category unto itself. They must be matching in color. So the jerseys and the shorts must match in color with everyone else on their team. The numbers must be on the front and the back of the jerseys. There's minimum requirements for how large they need to be, so make sure you look at those. And if you are getting new uniforms, adhere to these guidelines. Any visible garments worn by teammates under uniform. So if they want to wear an undershirt, like a long sleeve that shows, or like leggings under their shorts, anyone on your team that wishes to do that must match the other person in color. So if one person on your team wants to wear leggings, that doesn't mean everyone on the team has to wear leggings, but that means that the other people on your team that do want to wear leggings all must match in color. So if one person wears black leggings, everyone who wants to wear leggings, they must be black. And then we're not going to allow for any advertisements or sponsors. I know some of you guys obviously get your things donated. You do a lot of fundraisers around your community. And if you want to fundraise for those jerseys and those new uniforms, totally fine. Just make sure that there's no advertisements or sponsors on there, but you can have your county on there. So if you're from Howard County, Montgomery County, those types of things can be on the jerseys. And then getting towards the end here, which hopefully I'll be able to give a couple minutes to you guys back to your evening, but really want to hammer in the coach's code of conduct. In the second part of this, all these slides that you guys are going to be seeing on your own time, there's about 4 slides about the coach's code of conduct. So if you want to go through all the nitty-gritty details, please look at those. But just to go over in general, respect for all. Athletes, coaches, volunteers, staff, just make sure you're nice. I mean, kindness is key. We're all here to have a good time. We're all here to play the game of basketball. Everyone is volunteering for a reason, whether you love basketball, you have a family member, a friend, or you just really love the cause. But just make sure that we realize we all have a common goal, and that's to have fun and give the athletes a good experience. And we want to ensure a positive experience for all and a fair competition, good sportsmanship. You're really modeling this for your athletes and partners. So it's really important that you keep calm, you stay cool, even in some annoying situations, which I know we all find ourselves in when we coach and we don't agree with everything that's done or things like that. You must act professionally. So, like you would in any job that you have, don't yell, don't be rude to the officials, don't cuss, especially don't cuss. And then no alcohol, tobacco, vapor, drug use during events. Even if you have vapes, you cannot use them at our events. They're not going to be allowed in the event space. Um, and then the quality of service, you guys are volunteers and we would not be able to do this without you guys. Coaches, you guys are amazing and wonderful, but you also are promising us that you are going to provide a quality service to your athletes and your players. So just make sure you are up to date on all the rules, all the changes. You can, relay that information to your players and their families to make sure everyone's on the same page to make it fun. We don't want an athlete to not know the uniform requirements, or we don't want, information about qualifiers to be relayed to the parents incorrectly and then everyone get frustrated. Not good for you, not good for us. So just make sure you guys communicate and provide that quality service to not only your athletes and players, but also the families as well. And then just the health and safety of all the athletes and unified teammates. Just make sure that you guys are recognizing when they're tired, you're recognizing when your athletes need a break. And it's not only during competitions, but it's also in those practices. So just make sure you keep an eye, you keep tabs on your athletes, you really get to know them, and really form that connection with them so they can feel comfortable with you and open and honest with you. So they can have a really great experience and feel really confident in their abilities and in the sport of basketball. And then for any additional resources, we have the basketball coach resource page. I am updating that as frequently as I can. So anytime I get new information, lockdown details, I will immediately upload the coach's resource page. So that's a living and breathing resource for you guys throughout the entire season. If you have any questions about what's on it, please feel free to email me. If you think something should be added to it, please feel free to email me. Examples of that could be if you want to host a qualifier, let me know and I'll put it on the page. If you want to host an individual skills competition, let me know and I'll put it on the page. If you don't like any of the basketball trainings that we're offering and they don't cover anything that you're interested in, let me know. And if you're interested in hosting it, let me know and we can organize that and I'll put it on the webpage as well. We have the Special Olympics basketball page, which is the Special Olympics International basketball page, which is really a great useful tool as well. And then you have the basketball governing body page. Um, and then on top of these resources, like I said, the second half of this slide deck, we're not going to go over it with you guys, but it's just going to be a resource for you. Has a lot of links, has a lot of good information about trainings, about practices and drills. Those links are also on the basketball coaches resource page. So if you are a new coach, you really don't know where to start when it comes to planning a season, those templates can be found on the coaches resource page and are really great baselines to start.
Jordan, we did have one question come in. I just want to make sure that everyone who may not be able to monitor the chat, which I just added it to the slide, so that it should be ready to go when you send it
Okay,
out.
cool. Thank you.
About jewelry. So yeah, there's no jewelry allowed for any reason. No earrings, no nose rings, no tongue rings, no necklaces, bracelets, other than a medical emergency bracelet that must be taped down. So again, thank you for that question. We have added it, or at least I've added it to the slide. So just want to mention that. Go ahead, back to you.
So thank you, Steve. And that's a really great point about jewelry. I know during flag football, we had some athletes and players that had just gotten their ears pierced, and they wanted to know if they could put tape over their piercings, and that would be okay. That is not allowed. They can have no piercings in whatsoever, even if they're covered up with tape. I will say, when I was younger, I played soccer, and I have a couple ear piercings. And what I would do is they make little silicone rubber stoppers. That have posts that you can put in your ears. So if you have any players that are worried about like their piercings, have them remove their earrings and buy a set of those and just put them in because those are allowed. Um, and yeah, so
Yeah,
if you
just
have
had
any more,
another
yeah.
question come in, Jordan.
Okay.
Question was about 3v3 rules. If unless I'm mistaken, the rules state that to start the play, out of bounds or whatever, where you started at the top of the key, the
hmm
referee should give the ball to the inbounder of that team, and then they initiate play with a throw in or a pass in to start that game. If you guys were just doing checked balls and checking it with the other team, that's not the way it should be happening, at least to my recollection and my knowledge base, but I will double check that.
Yeah,
If you do
Steve,
that, at
I think we're utilizing the same ter or different terminology for the same thing. So
gotcha, okay.
yeah, no, there is Coach Rotman's correct. There is no throw in from the sideline or the baseline or anything, but
Yep,
the throw in requirement is or the it's the same basic thing that's going on there.
yep,
Once
yeah.
they've
There's
gotten it from the
nothing new, to
nothing
your
new. That
question,
is
nothing
correct.
new this year.
Yes.
Great. Well, we do have a little bit of time, so if anyone has a question and wants to stay on, they can. But if you have any more questions beyond tonight, please feel free to email me. You can call me, text me, shoot me an email. I'm pretty responsive. I have a lot of stuff going on, but obviously want to respond to you guys in a timely manner. So yeah, let me know. And then if you guys are interested in how we divvy up the sports, I'm also the sport director for cheerleading, softball, and flag football. And then you can see my coworkers, Julie, Monty, and Jake, are also responsible for their own sports. So if you have any questions about these sports, please direct them to the correct sports director. Cool. And that is it for you guys tonight. Thank you guys so much for being on the webinar. I'm happy that I could give a couple minutes back to your evening. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we are recording this tonight. So the recording and also the slide deck will be available on the coach's resource page, the basketball specific one, by tomorrow morning. So if you have any questions, please go back and use that as a guide. And then also if you know someone who wasn't able to make it tonight or came in late and missed the first half or couldn't make the second half, just reference them to the coach's resource page so they can get all of this really helpful information. But yeah, that's it for us tonight. Really appreciate you guys all being here again, and I'm really excited for a good basketball season. I know I have big shoes to fill, coming on here after Melissa. So all the help, and all the advice from you guys, I welcome it, please. But yeah, other than that, enjoy the rest of your weeks, and I will see you guys in the new year when competition starts.
Yep. And as Jordan stated, thank you guys so much for what you do as volunteers, as coaches, as looking at the names. I know many of you are family members and members of your management teams and coach other sports, etc. So thank you, on behalf of the state office here, for everything you do to provide the opportunities for the athletes that we all serve. With that, I'm going to shut up. And then if you want to stop the recording, Jordan, we're good.
Mhm.